We good, Michelle?
Governor Murphy, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Incredibly honored to be joined by some truly outstanding individuals this morning. Morristown's own Alexis McGill-Johnson, who is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Action Fund and the CEO of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Majority Leader Senator Loretta Weinberg, who has been by our side at every step of the way on anything related to women's health for decades. Likewise, Assemblywoman Valerie Huttle, a champion as well, and has been there day in and day out. Rabia Norton-Lee, who's an APN Associate Medical Director for Planned Parenthood Action Fund of New Jersey. She's going to kick us off in a second. And if that all weren't enough, we got the First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy, with us today. The topic is the Reproductive Freedom Act. There's a lot of ground to cover. Let's get right at it. Again, please help me welcome, first up to bat, Rabia Norton-Lee, again, an APN Associate Medical Director, Planned Parenthood Action Fund of New Jersey. Rabia, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rabia Norton-Lee. I am a women's health nurse practitioner, and I am proud to serve as the Associate Medical Director with Planned Parenthood of Northern, Central, and Southern New Jersey. Every day, my colleagues and I help our patients make the best healthcare decisions for their lives. We listen to their needs, we hear their concerns, and we provide the information they need to make their own choices. This is what every New Jerseyan deserves: the right to make their own personal healthcare decisions, including decisions about birth control, abortion, or pregnancy care. My role as a healthcare provider is to be there for my patients as they make these decisions based on what is best for their families, their lives, and their futures. But I know that outside of these conversations I get to have with my patients about their care, and outside of these personal decisions they make, there are numerous hurdles that they often must overcome. Sometimes my patients tell me that they put off getting care because they are worried about how much it would cost. These patients often have no insurance coverage or high deductibles that result in steep out-of-pocket costs. I feel for the patients I see who struggle with paying for medical care because they lack insurance coverage. While Planned Parenthood helps them get the care they need, and we don't turn patients away due to an inability to pay, not everyone knows where to turn for help. Sometimes my patients tell me that they had difficulty arranging childcare or getting time off of work to make their appointments. While I love seeing my patients, I don't want to have them come in month after month or every few months to get birth control because their insurance only covers a month or a few months at a time. They should be able to go home with 12 packs of pills to make it easier. And sometimes it's patients who hear from us. Provider shortages mean appointments may get rescheduled because the state currently only allows doctors to provide some abortions. I am an advanced practice clinician, a nurse practitioner, and I am capable of being trained to also provide this care just as other states allow. This would help reduce provider shortages, yet it is not yet a reality in New Jersey. Rights without access are meaningless. The patients I see were able to access care despite the obstacles, but there are countless others out there who can't overcome these barriers to care. And with Monday's news about the Supreme Court hearing a case that is a direct threat to Roe versus Wade next term, not only must we continue to protect our rights here in New Jersey, we must also work to expand access. As a medical provider, I can't understate the urgency of this moment. My patients are relying on New Jersey's leadership. Luckily, we have champions here in New Jersey that understand how essential reproductive health care services truly are. With that, it is my distinct honor to introduce Governor Phil Murphy.
Rabia, thank you. Let's hear it for Rabia Norton Lee. That was incredibly, perfectly laid out the case of why we have to act now and we have to act unequivocally to write reproductive freedom into our state laws. Really well done, Rabia, and thank you for getting us off this discussion off to a great start. I got a few comments, but not many, and I know you all want to hear from Alexis, and it's a real treat to have her with us today, Loretta, Valerie, and Tammy as well. So I believe my math is right. For about 48 years, every New Jerseyan's right to reproductive freedom has been upheld through Roe v. Wade. So our courts have looked to Roe to cement reproductive rights as a cornerstone matter of case law. We always, unfortunately, expected this to happen, and it has happened with the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to consider Mississippi's draconian abortion law in the fall. The prospect that Roe could now be overturned is more real than ever. We were discussing before we got on here, a lot of folks have thought this is abstract. I don't think anyone on this call ever thought it was abstract, but now it is right before us. So very simply, reproductive freedom can no longer be a matter of case law in New Jersey. It must be a matter of statutory law. In other words, if the very underpinning and foundation of our case law is turned from cement to quicksand, we have to act and with a strong, passionate preference preemptively. Codifying the right to abortion care alone won't wipe out existing barriers that disproportionately harm our most vulnerable communities. So the legislation that has been put forward, and we'll hear from two extraordinary leaders in a couple of minutes, the legislation is filled with proactive changes. And four jump out at me. Eliminating out-of-pocket expenses, expanding the scope of practice for advanced nurse practitioners. Again, Rabia struck that chord. Striking out-of-date and unnecessary medical restrictions, and freeing up access to oral contraception with a 12-month supply. Those are four that jump out for me, but there are many more in this. So the time to pass the Reproductive Freedom Act is now. And I look forward to working with leadership and members of both chambers to ensure this bill gets a hearing and then it gets a vote as soon as we can, with a strong preference by June 30th before the legislature goes on budget break. As both Alexis in her national role and Rabia can tell us from their research and experience, reproductive freedom is a basic matter of public health. We have all learned over the past year that public health leads to economic health, and we all do better. We're on a journey. Loretta and I were on a call last night and acknowledged that. We've accomplished so much together, but there's still unfinished business, including and especially the reason why we're gathered today. A couple of things that jump out for me, Loretta, as if it were yesterday, the first law I signed was restoring funding for Planned Parenthood and family planning. What happened? Health centers opened, tens of thousands of residents regained access to affordable and compassionate care, and hundreds of nurses and healthcare professionals found new ways to serve. Another example, when the Trump administration put in place its Title X gag rule, we found new ways to fund health clinics to protect vital doctor-patient conversations on reproductive rights. New Jersey will never, ever, ever join the parade of states trying to whittle away reproductive freedom through unnecessary and impossible regulations on clinics and donors. And if you need any proof that this is also not abstract, look at Texas yesterday. We know who overwhelmingly bears the true burden of these efforts: the most vulnerable, those living in poverty, people of color, those of limited means. The Reproductive Freedom Act is about a healthier future for every New Jerseyan. We must pass it now so these ideals are front and center as a matter of state law before the US Supreme Court has a chance to overturn Roe v. Wade. With that, it is not every day that we get someone of such national significance, who, by the way, as I mentioned up front, has got deep Jersey roots. It is a real honor to have Alexis McGill Johnson with us. I mentioned at the outset, she's president and CEO of both the Planned Parenthood Action Fund and as well as the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. She holds degrees. If her Morristown roots weren't enough, she holds degrees from Princeton and Yale. She's taught political science at Yale and Wesleyan. She's a mom of two daughters. It is an incredible treat to have her with us. Please help me welcome Alexis McGill Johnson.
Thank you so much, Governor Murphy. I am really honored to be here with you and the First Lady, Assemblywoman Huttle, and Majority Leader Weinberg, and to Rabia. Thank you so much for your passion, your purpose, your commitment to Planned Parenthood patients. It's really an honor to share the stage with you. I'm really just grateful for all of you, for your leadership, and for the way you've just unapologetically fought for sexual and reproductive rights. As Governor Murphy said, and I quite frankly tell everybody, I am a Jersey girl. I am a proud Jersey girl who, understands New Jersey's strong history of leadership on health policy. And right now, we need the state legislature to continue that legacy by passing the Reproductive Freedom Act by the end of the budget season. It really can't wait, because across the country, sexual and reproductive rights are under assault. In the first 5 months of this year, 536 abortion restrictions were introduced across 46 states. We know these bans will disproportionately affect people of color, trans and non-binary folks, and folks with low incomes. And if that wasn't enough, Monday happened. The Supreme Court announced that they will take up the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban. Now, as Governor Murphy said, Roe is 48 years old, same age as me. I always say I'm as old as Roe, and have always benefited from the fact that for 50 years, the Supreme Court has been clear on the right to abortion. Politicians don't get to decide what we do with our bodies, we decide. So this case isn't just troubling, it is a direct attack on the heart of Roe, and it makes the Reproductive Freedom Act even more urgent. New Jersey leaders have the power to do something about this, right? Don't just say you stand for sexual and reproductive health. You can show us what that means, because we know that a right without access is meaningless, and so is access without a right. To bridge that gap, we need the Reproductive Freedom Act, and we need it now. The bill will guarantee that all New Jerseyans have the right to make their own decisions when it comes to birth control and abortion. It ensures that financial restrictions do not prevent anyone from making healthcare decisions. And it expands access to birth control and abortion by eliminating medically unnecessary restrictions. Right now, New Jersey has an opportunity that many organizers across the country can only dream about: the chance to pass proactive legislation. And when you get this bill over the finish line, you won't just be improving the lives of millions of New Jersey residents. You have the power to export imagination to organizers across the country in states that are hostile to reproductive freedom. The organizers have to rely on that imagination to create possibility. People have to know what they are fighting for. They have to know how it gets done. And this bill can give organizers a playbook about how to fight forward. There are no more powerful words in movement building than "that could be us." Because when people recognize what freedom looks like when it is taken away, they will fight to make it their own. But we can't get there without you. We know the courts won't save us, certainly not right now. The fight for reproductive freedom can only be won in the states, and this is the chance to meet that moment. So let's get it done. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I am Jersey proud and Jersey strong, and really excited to be working and supporting this work with you.
Alexis, it is an incredible treat to have you with us. Before we turn to Loretta and Valerie and Tammy, my understanding is California, Delaware, New York, Oregon, and Washington have already taken, broadly speaking, steps that, similar to the Reproductive Freedom Act that we are considering. Do you sense there are other states that are in a similar state as we are in terms of deep consideration?
I think we have the opportunity to really organize in places like Michigan and North Carolina and Arizona, as well, where we are seeing tremendous momentum, where we are seeing a lot of great energy, and again, I think we're going to see this in the streets, as soon as the fall, when the hearings start to begin by the Supreme Court. So, yes, there has been some leadership. That's really important, because what will happen if Roe is gutted or overturned, 25 million women will be living in states that do not have access to an abortion provider. So they will be traveling to states like New York, like California, like New Jersey, that represent freedom. And so I think it's really important to get this through the finish line now, so people will understand where the possibilities are.
Great. Well said. And Alexis, what a treat to have you virtually. We cannot wait to welcome you back in person sooner than later into the Garden State. But thank you so much for everything you do, including for the time you're taking with us today. I mentioned this at the outset. As Loretta hangs up her spikes at the end of the year, the legacy is going to be rich and multifaceted and lengthy. For my tastes, I put women's health, including reproductive rights and gun safety, at or near the top of the list in that legacy. So with that, please help me welcome, there is no bigger champion, the Majority Leader of the Senate, Senator Loretta Weinberg.
Thank you very much, Governor Murphy. Thank you, Alexis, for joining us and for bringing your Jersey girl roots to this national discussion. We can always count on a Jersey girl to win the battle. You talked about Roe v. Wade being 48 years old. Well, I'm a lot older than Roe v. Wade. And I remember the days quite clearly before abortion was legal. And as I have said many times, women have always been pro-choice. The only difference is, do they have safe options? And that's where Roe v. Wade comes in. I'm going to recount just a couple of stories that come to mind. When we were fighting for funding for Planned Parenthood, which had been zeroed out of the budget by Governor Murphy's predecessor. Thankfully, I can underline the word predecessor. I appeared before a Senate Budget Committee, and I can remember so well the three female senators that were sitting there, Senator Gill, then Senator Buono, and Senator Cunningham. And all three said that Planned Parenthood was their family physician when they first went to college. It was so interesting to me to hear this from this very diverse group of women, both diverse racially, age-wise, that it was Planned Parenthood who helped them through the years when they first needed a healthcare provider to depend upon. And then I remember when I appeared before the Assembly Budget Committee and an assemblyman, as Planned Parenthood said, they had provided services, birth control services, that prevented 4,000 unwanted pregnancies. And this assemblyman was quite vociferous, said that he was, quote, offended that those were children that should have been born. And he was quite lucky. There was a large space in between where I was testifying and he was seated. So I've been in this fight for so long, and every time I think you can relax, and it's all been taken care of. Things like this Supreme Court appointed by a prior president comes to rear its head. And I'd like to point out something else, because I don't think most New Jersey residents know that the right to abortion is not in our state law, that it is memorialized in court decisions. We need state law in New Jersey. We need to memorialize that. We have a pro-choice legislature. We have a wonderful pro-choice access to women's health governor who has proven this time and time again. We have a wonderful first lady who has gone all over this state to campaign for women's access to health care across the board. And we have legislative leaders like my colleague in the Assembly, Valerie Huttle. So this is the time to make that statement in New Jersey that our legislature will put into law, and this governor will sign, women's access to complete health care, along with the ability to access that health care with the appropriate insurance coverage. So thank you to all of you who are gathered here today, and most important, thank you for your leadership in this really important issue. Governor Murphy, I would really like to hang up my spikes and cross this off my list of something I have to continuously worry about. And to you, to the First Lady, thank you for your leadership and for keeping these issues in the spotlight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Boy, it will be great if that aspiration can come to pass, that as you hang up the spikes, this is off the list of the unfinished business. You make an incredibly important point, which needs to be underscored. The right to reproductive health, including an abortion in New Jersey, is not in the law. It is based on case law, and the case law in New Jersey is based on the underpinning, the foundation of that is Roe v. Wade. So if Roe v. Wade, think of this as a house of cards. If Roe v. Wade is struck or impaired, all the case law in our state that has been built upon it will come tumbling down. And in the absence of law, a law that the legislature passes and that I sign, that's exactly what will happen. And we were having this conversation earlier because there are some folks who I think generally want to get there and want to follow Loretta and Valerie's lead. But there's been, I've heard a fair amount. Listen, we get it. We understand that Trump has packed the Supreme Court, that they're likely to be hostile to Roe v. Wade, but there's no rush. We can do this in reaction. I think I could speak without any hesitation on behalf of all of us. That's not the way to think about it. We got to get out ahead of this. And this Mississippi case is a stark reminder that this is far from abstract. This could be on our lap before we know it. So Loretta, thank you for those comments and for your leadership on this. And as you have led with great distinction, consistently, day in and day out, year in and year out in the Senate, Valerie Huttle has done the same. She's been at our side at every step of the way, across the board, on all the huge amount of progress we've made on women's health, including in reproductive arena, Planned Parenthood. And it's a treat to have her with us today. Please help me welcome Assemblywoman Valerie Huttle.
Thank you, Governor. Nice to see you, First Lady Tammy, and of course to my colleague, my esteemed colleague, Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg. And Rabia, your words spoke volumes to the reason why we need to expand the scope here in New Jersey. But a special thank you to our Jersey girl, Alexis McGill Johnson. And we're incredibly proud to have you continue this advocacy here. You know, as I listen to everyone talk about how easy this should be to codify Roe v. Wade here in New Jersey, I have to say that reproductive rights have always, unfortunately, been under attack. And I will tell you that through the years, as Loretta and I have passed legislation with funding for Planned Parenthood, we actually had in our local district offices, our supporters and friends in our community come and actually protest. Imagine protesters here in New Jersey in our local district, which included Teaneck and Englewood. And so when you see that, there is still a lot of work and messaging to be done here in New Jersey. Just last week, I was in Tenafly with a group of women, and they were writing postcards to their legislators to make sure that they will listen to us and get our Reproductive Safety Act in for a vote. Right here, they're still trying to advocate legislators around the state to support this. That's incredible to me in 2021, because as we heard, now more than ever, our alarm bells are sounding because of what is happening in Mississippi, you know, putting Roe on the chopping block once again. I would say this to friends and family to say when with the Supreme Court, they never took it seriously, that it could never happen and we could never go back. Well, let me tell you, if we're having some concerns here in New Jersey, it's certainly a horrible possibility that Roe v. Wade will have some challenges. But as you heard, we don't need to just pass the Reproductive Freedom Act because, you know, the Supreme Court, just because the Supreme Court is racing to overturn Roe v. Wade, in itself, we need to pass RFA because Roe has never been enough, as you heard. A right is not a right if you cannot access it. And so the Reproductive Freedom Act would ensure that all of us here in New Jersey can access women's health as well. And it's so much more because it extends to not only, but immigration status and zip code, nothing would matter. So I guess just my final message to our legislative leadership, enough with the excuses, because 2/3 of New Jerseyans support the Reproductive Freedom Act and 87% of New Jerseyans do not want to see their lawmakers interfere with decisions about abortion. And 80% of New Jerseyans want to see their lawmakers show real leadership to protect and expand access to reproductive health care. So we started this journey a while ago, and I think the last time we had a press conference, Governor, was probably, I don't know, I think it was last year, wasn't it? I think we've wasted enough time, and I think we need to pass this Reproductive Freedom Act like soon. So I thank you for all those on this virtual Zoom, because I think we have to energize the support. I think that the threat in Mississippi should give us momentum here in New Jersey. And if we can't do it in New Jersey, that's pretty alarming. So I stand with my colleagues, and quite frankly, we have many co-sponsors in the Assembly. So I stand together and hopefully we get this done sooner than later. So thank you for the opportunity, Planned Parenthood, and let's get this done. Thank you.
Well said, Val. And the numbers, I'd be curious, Alexis, if what the general population in some of these states that are going the other direction, like Texas, look like. The man and woman on the street in New Jersey, to Valerie's numbers in the polling data, overwhelmingly support this as in terms of the direction we should be headed. I wonder, is that different in some of these states that are taking the draconian steps in the opposite direction, or are they acting against the will of the people, as it were?
I mean, thank you so much for asking that question. There is no state in the union that does not believe that Roe should be the law of the land, that this should actually be supported. And what we have in states unlike New Jersey is where you have a vocal minority who control the levers of power, and they are doing this, pushing these draconian bills against the will of the people, and the opportunity you have before you with the power that you have built to reflect the majority, I think is just one not to waste. It is so critical to advance this in a way that really demonstrates that the will of the people is being heard and understood.
Alexis, if I can ask you one more, this is not a political discussion. This is just in the category that elections have consequences. If you keep doing things that are against the will of the people, at a certain point that catches up with you. There are only 2 states this year that have up and down, top of the ballot to the bottom of the ballot elections, New Jersey and Virginia. So everybody's in both Loretta's chamber and Val's chamber are on the ballot. I'm on the ballot. What's the tone in Virginia in particular on this topic? And is that a state that you could see following suit in either direction, God willingly, in the direction we're headed and not in the other direction?
Virginia is a great case study, and we always pay attention to Virginia, in advance of the midterms, because it's going to be a huge bellwether for us to understand, as well as New Jersey, where where the public is going. But look, Virginia had a playbook that was 8 years, long in terms of trying to both win back the state legislature and the governorship, to address and repeal some of the draconian restrictions they had in place. And so, I think the energy continues to be there. There are, extraordinary, leadership running in Virginia at the top of the ticket right now, and women who are also making the case very strongly and boldly about the impact of Roe right now. And so, I think it is a really powerful playbook. And we've seen when people put this on the ballot, when they speak vocally about how important, access to sexual and reproductive health care is, including abortion, it is a winning issue, right? When, we saw that in Michigan, actually, just in 2020, when Senator Peters spoke about his family's story with abortion, his support actually increased because people felt that authenticity. They understood that they didn't want to be in the middle of decision making with him, right? They wanted the family and their provider and their pastor, whomever they wanted to bring into the conversation, to be making those decisions. Yeah. And I think when you're able to talk about it plainly in those ways, it does become a winning issue for us.
Alexis, I want to underscore, as I introduce our final, last but not least speaker, the First Lady, my wife, who knows a thing or two about Virginia, by the way. You made a point that, again, is worth underscoring, because obviously our eyeballs are pressed against, our noses against the glass in New Jersey, right? So this is what we're focused on. But I think I heard this: don't confuse what a vocal minority gets some elected officials to pursue with the will of the people. So we should not be thinking that everybody in Texas wants to roll back reproductive rights. To the contrary. And as Loretta and Valerie have been in this elected line of business longer than I have, you can only defy the will of the people so long, particularly if the numbers, that gap is overwhelming. So great point to point out. Again, last but not least, the First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, who spends a significant amount of her time on matters in and around women's health. A great honor to have First Lady Tammy Murphy.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am honored and want to thank everyone who's joined us today. Our state legislators, Senator Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg, Assemblywoman Valerie Huttle, the incredible leadership of Planned Parenthood, President Alexis McGill-Johnson, and Associate Medical Director Rabia Norton-Lee, and of course, my husband, for their commitment to the women of New Jersey and this nation. The issue at hand, reproductive freedom, was settled nearly 5 decades ago. That victory, the Supreme Court's 1973 decision on Roe versus Wade, gave women something we have long sought: control over our own bodies. Despite that fact, the debate has continued, waxing and waning, along with our apprehension that our hard-won rights could still be taken away. However, the question that drives this debate is not, as it is so often characterized, about two opposing sides, good and evil. Rather, it's about trust and dignity. It's about privilege and power. Do we trust women to make the right decisions for themselves and their families? Do women deserve to be treated with the dignity and respect that we so often automatically afford men? No disrespect, Phil. Is access to necessary medical care something only for the powerful and the wealthy? In New Jersey, I think we're ready to answer those questions. And our reply is the Reproductive Freedom Act. This act says plainly to all New Jersey women, you are an autonomous and valued member of our community. And when the time comes for you to decide whether and when to begin your family, you will be treated with the dignity you deserve, and you will have access to the health care that you need. To those who oppose ensuring these rights for women, I ask to consider these facts. New Jersey is now a state that has pay equity, guaranteed paid sick leave, expanded family leave, and a higher minimum wage. Further, we are committed to making New Jersey the safest and most equitable place in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. All of these policies are driven by the same principle. When women are healthier and have more economic freedom, we all do better. Moreover, and this is the value and belief at the very heart of this act, we trust women to make the best decision for themselves and their families. We trust women. This trust allows our mothers, our sisters, our daughters to take care of their families and themselves. So again, I want to thank everyone here today for their work to support women. I'm grateful to count you all as trusted allies, and I'm proud to see that New Jersey is once again leading the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. Well said. Great to have you with us. So as they say in Hollywood, or soon, by the way, New Jersey, thanks again to, I'm looking at Loretta, we're gonna be making a lot of movies and television shows here. That's a wrap. So I want to thank, an incredible treat to have Alexis McGill Johnson with us, representing the Federation as well as the Action Fund of Planned Parenthood. Alexis, we wish you nothing but great success to you and your colleagues. Rabia Norton-Lee, representing the Jersey side of the Planned Parenthood House. Thank you so much for framing this so brilliantly for us today and for what you do every single day. Senator Loretta Weinberg, Assemblywoman Valerie Veneri Huttle, you've been there every step of the way, and not surprisingly, you're right there today, and you, I know, will be. And let's get that done before the spikes get hung up, Loretta. I love that notion. And Tammy, as always, great to have you with us. Folks, let's stay at this. Let's get this on the rails. Sooner is better than later. This is not abstract anymore. This is a real, present danger and threat to women in New Jersey, and we must act, and we must act preemptively. Thank you all. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.